Well, that was a tale of two halves last night. Good morning, 6:05. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. 28-7. Chiefs beat the Commanders last night on Monday Night Football on a dreary, misty night out at Arrowhead Stadium. And this team is on a roll, man. But that first half, I was like, boy, that guy John Anthony knows a thing or two, huh? He was on it, saying, I don't know. And then the Chiefs took care of business in the second half, smoking the Commanders in that third quarter and winning by 3 touchdowns after it was a 7-7 game at halftime before the Chiefs opened it up in that third quarter and got the offense absolutely rolling. So great win last night. Mark's got his Chiefs hat on. Did you hit that big parlay last night, Mark Van Sickle?
I hit the Equinox parlay. I was one leg off on the Chiefs again, 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, wow.
I needed 15 yards from Hollywood Brown, and he didn't even have one catch.
All right, so the Sports Equinox parlay, last night was the 32nd time in sports history that there was a Major League Baseball playoff game, or I should say a World Series game. I think it's just any Major League Baseball game, right?
Of course, would be the World Series.
Any Major League Baseball game combined with an NFL game, combined with an NBA game, combined with an NHL game. And, Mark, you hit the Pittsburgh Penguins, right, in the NHL.
Yep.
You hit the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. You hit the Chiefs. And then in the 18th inning of the World Series last night, you took care of business with the Dodgers victory.
I fell asleep in the 15th.
Did you? What time was that?
12:45, way too late.
What are you doing staying up till 12:40? Stop. What are you staying up till 12:45 for, Mark? Come on.
What pushed me over the edge was they kept walking Ohtani. They wouldn't let him have a chance to hit a home run. I was getting mad.
You know what put me over the edge? Hearing that you're staying up until 1 a.m. I need you on your game for this show, man. Tirade Tuesday's coming up in 2.5 hours. People are going to be bumping on the phone lines. You're going to be falling asleep on the board in there.
Oh, no, I'm wired. I'm still ready to go.
You're wired because you're drinking whatever you're drinking there, that energy drink. That's why you're wired. You're going to be fried by 7:30. I mean, Keatsman's back today.
Yeah, it's Keatsman's problem.
Yeah. I mean, Keatsman's coming back from vacation. His producer is going to be face first on the board before the show starts. Jeez. Oh, my goodness. All right.
I told Mark, I said, I hope they don't start canceling parlays because the results come the next day, right? With that game going 18 innings, you got 2 whole games in and they play again.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. That was unbelievable. 18-inning win last night for the Dodgers over the Blue Jays, 6-5. Dodgers lead the World Series 2-1. Now, back here at Arrowhead, Clark Hunt did his annual midseason press conference. And Clark Hunt, of course, got asked about the stadium project because we've been sitting here for years trying to figure out what these two sports franchises are going to do. And take a listen to what Clark Hunt had to say. Basically, he said...
Yeah, so it's not something I can...
Hold on. Basically, he said nothing about the stadium project, but here it was in Clark Hunt's own words.
Stadium projects move at their own pace. And we've learned over the years that you can't really force them to go faster, even if you want them to. So it's just important for us to keep working on both options. We're glad that we have both options, and hopefully sometime in the near future, we'll get to a decision.
Well, of course he's glad he has both options. Right? I mean, he's been able to pit these two states against each other. Kansas has been willing to play ball, no pun intended, which then forced Missouri to basically have a special session where they gave more tax incentives, this time from the state, to try to keep the Chiefs and the Royals in the state of Missouri. So I mean, Clark Hunt's happiest guy in Kansas City. Team's playing great football, and, these stadium deals are going to come together at some point, and no matter what, his deal on the Missouri side, if he stays there, is better than it was for the last 20 years. Over the last 20 years, it was just the sales tax from Jackson County. He may get more money out of that sales tax when all is said and done if the Royals leave Jackson County, which seems all but certain at this point. And then he's got this massive state incentive as well that he didn't have for the last couple of decades. And then, of course, if he goes to Kansas, listen, I, as you well know, much more skeptical about that side of the state line and what the star bond actually looks like. But if he can figure out a way to get up to 70% of that stadium on the Kansas side funded by the taxpayer, that's a pretty good deal, too. Now, when he says these stadium projects move at their own pace, I mean, they really don't. Let's be honest. They don't move at their own pace. They move at their own pace if you're trying to figure out a way to finagle the politicians into doing what you want. Then, yes, they do move at their own pace, if you want to interpret it that way, John.
Well, they kind of move at the pace of the Monarch schedule, as it were, with Frank White being involved at that point.
Well, that's a good point. But now we can take the Monarchs off the table.
Yeah,
but
all taken care of.
The Monarchs road trips really got in the way of the Royals and Chiefs stadium plans
off to
here.
Cleburne.
Yeah, that's true for the last couple of years. But I don't hear a guy who's obviously showing his hand. He's smart not to show his hand. He's not going to bother doing that. But if you think about a timeline for all of this, what I think you're looking at is Clark Hunt saying, I want the Royals to move first. Because Clark Hunt really can't say, I'm staying at Arrowhead and here are the plans. If the Royals are like, well, we don't know exactly what we're doing, that's kind of awkward. So that's where he's got to basically sit there and wait for the Royals to make their announcement. Now, from what I'm hearing, the Royals may be all of 2-3 weeks away from having that decision made sometime before Thanksgiving is what I would say. But as you may have heard yesterday on this show, if you didn't, we'll get to it coming up. You had an Overland Park mayor who was on the ballot 1 week from today, Kurt Skoog, who did not want to discuss whether or not he is a proponent of the baseball stadium being at 119th and Knoll. He chose to answer it how he wanted to answer it, and we'll get to that coming up here on KCMO. But he clearly was not in the mood to either be a proponent or an opponent of a Major League Baseball stadium sitting at 119th and Knoll. And that's because he's got to know deep down it is somewhat controversial to put a baseball stadium there. He's got to know that that is not something that the bulk of the residents want, because if they did want it, you'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm all in favor of it. Sign me up. This is great. I'm in. That's not what's going on right now. So I appreciate Clark Hunt at least standing in front of the cameras and saying something about the stadium. You're not getting that from the other side of the parking lot right now. No one's making a peep over there. But Clark Hunt at least gets up there and looks at the cameras and, as a result, looks at Kansas City and says, here's what's going on, moving at its own pace, can't force it, and we are still evaluating both options. If I had to sit here and make a prediction today, my prediction would be Royals, and this is not what I want necessarily, although I think it's the best move, and I think it's what's going to happen. Royals go up north to North Kansas City, and the Chiefs stay where they're at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, why did one local mayor get very upset with me? I thought it was a very simple question. Apparently, it was a little more complicated than that. And if you missed it, we'll play it. And I want to get your feedback at 913-408-7957. Coming up next on KCMO. You tell me. I'm just trying to get some answers around here. That's all. I think it's of interest to not just residents in Overland Park, but I think the entire metro is intrigued by where the Kansas City Royals are going to go. And it does seem, as I reported 3 weeks ago here on the show, that North Kansas City may be option 1A and Overland Park 119th and Knoll is option 1B. And then Washington Square Park, from what I've heard, is out of the mix. There are two finalists in the Kansas City Metro to land the Royals. And considering we're a week out from local elections on the Kansas side, I just think it's an interesting thing to ask people. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to welcome on Overland Park Mayor Kurt Skoog yesterday, who's running for re-election. And I do believe, as I've said, over the last couple of weeks, he is a heavy favorite to win re-election and to get 4 more years as the Overland Park mayor. I'm not getting involved in the race, but I do think that, the two people who are running in the race, which is, of course, Kurt Skoog and Faris Farasati, should be able to answer a simple question. Do you want the Royals in Overland Park? And if so, what does that look like? And why is that good for the residents? Now, it's ultimately going to be a state decision, right? The state of Kansas has passed this Star Bond deal. The Royals have to basically present a Star Bond district to the state of Kansas, and this board at the state level will decide whether or not it's approved. But still, let's be honest. Overland Park has a lot of juice in this decision. If Overland Park starts throwing a fit, you know what? You could probably get this thing nixed pretty quickly. So I asked the mayor yesterday whether or not he would be a proponent of the Royals coming to 119th and Null. And here's what the mayor of Overland Park had to say, and then we'll get to you at 913-408-7957.
I know you prefer them downtown, but if the Royals say they want to be in Overland Park, is that something you would try to move forward on, or would you say, I don't think this is the place for them?
Yeah, we have multiple sites in Overland Park that could work for a stadium. So the key to understand is that a new modern baseball stadium is not Kauffman Stadium, right? It is not a 45 to 50,000 seat stadium surrounded by giant concrete parking lots, right? Where there's only two ways in and out, right? You either go to I-70 or you go to 435. I encourage people to go look at what modern baseball stadiums look like. That is not what they are, right? They're smaller today. They're surrounded by additional development that makes it more of an experience than just showing up at a baseball game. So we have places in Overland Park where it could work. We'll have to see what the proposal is, what it looks like. Does it work for the residents and the businesses of Overland Park? At the end of the day, that is the key question.
But there's only one part being talked about, right? And that's 119th and Null, unless you want to break some news on this show and suggest there's another location getting interest from the Royals.
There are multiple locations in Overland Park where a baseball stadium would work.
Okay. And the 119th and Null location, do you think that is a good place for Major League Baseball?
That's one of multiple sites that could work for baseball in Overland Park.
I understand that, but that's not what I asked. Is it a good place for baseball in your opinion?
That's my answer, Pete. Pete, I gave you the answer.
Okay. All right. So the answer is there is you don't want to answer the question. You don't want to answer the question, just so I'm clear.
No, Pete, I'm being very clear. You asked if that is a place where it could work, and I said there are multiple places where it could work. So I answered your question. And so would love to talk about the election coming up, Pete.
That was Overland Park Mayor Kurt Skoog on the show yesterday. So make of that what you want. I don't think the question was answered. I will stand by my assertion there. But he is allowed to answer the question how he sees fit. But then it's also my job on the back end to acknowledge that the question was not answered. Is that a good place for Major League Baseball at 119th and Null? It's a yes or no is really all it is. I happen to think it's a no. Okay? I don't think it's even close. I think it's a terrible place for Major League Baseball. I could think a few worse places for Major League Baseball than 119th and Null. I don't know how you're getting people in and out of that place. I mean, you talk about saying Kauffman Stadium has two ways in and out, which isn't really true at all. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get in and out of Kauffman Stadium.
Blue Ridge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've all got our back routes. There are many ways to get in and out of that place, not two ways. But I can tell you this, snaking down College Boulevard, trying to work through neighborhoods in Leawood to get back out to, State Line Road and then shoot up to the interstate, boy, that's going to go over real well, right? I can see that being just a gem 81 nights a year for the folks in Leawood and Overland Park. So maybe it's Leawood that's got to step up to the plate here and start making some noise. I don't know. But it doesn't sound to me, and this is just reading the tea leaves here, that if the Royals pick Kansas, Overland Park is not going to get in the way of this thing. You can hear the politicians say, hey, if the Royals pick Kansas, we'll go through our regular process and we'll hear from the residents. I mean, that's going to be like listening to the Teacher and the Peanuts episodes. Wah, 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 wah. You can get up there and say whatever you want in front of that city council if we get to that point. And they're not going to hear a word that you're saying. At that point, it will be a done deal. You
City
know
council's going to go all school board on you.
Exactly. You know that, and I know that, okay? So if you want to get out in front of this thing, well, there's an election coming up in a week, and I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not getting involved in this deal. I'm not. I have no interest. Not something I want any part of. I'm just saying there is a mayor's race coming up in a week in Overland Park. You should do your research on what exactly your candidate options are on that front. We will ask the other individual running for mayor of Overland Park, Faris Farasati, coming up at 8 o'clock, a very simple question. Does he support the Royals in Overland Park? Does he want to see the Royals in Overland Park? That's it. That's all I want an answer to. It's a very simple question. It's a yes-no question. And then you can build upon it after the fact. But that's the only thing that I'm interested in hearing here at this point from these two mayoral candidates. And I know that people will say, well, that's not the most important issue impacting Overland Park. Okay, I get it. Overland Park's a very big place. If you live down on 159th Street, I guess you don't really care about the baseball stadium being at 119th and Knoll if you're never in that part of town. But I think anybody within a stone's throw of that part of town, or anyone who spends time in that part of town, or even business owners in that part of town, may not love that idea. Because it could get very messy and very hairy very quickly. And we're not talking about, 8 football games. You're talking about 81 baseball games is what you're talking about. And that's what makes this a very unique proposition. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. That is the text line as well. Pete, all the mayor did was show he doesn't know the real details of the Royals moving to Overland Park. No, I'm not sure that's true. Maybe not wanting to share the details. But I don't think that's what's going on. I believe, this is my belief, the mayor knows more about the project at 119th and Knoll than he may be willing to let on. And let's be clear on this, too. There is one site in Overland Park being considered. I don't care that there are multiple options that could host the Royals. Doesn't matter. There's one site under consideration. That's it. And we all know that to be the case. I confirmed that last night with a couple of sources. There's only one place being considered. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, what is the latest on redistricting on the Kansas side? We'll tell you. We have the details next. Well, they're getting closer in Kansas. Yesterday, we told you that it didn't look like they had any chance of redistricting the state to try to squeeze out Sharice Davids in the 3rd Congressional District. But yesterday, President Ty Masterson with the Kansas Senate said that they have the Republican signatures needed in the Senate only to call a special session and consider a new congressional district map. Now, the holdup is the House side. So they have the votes they need in the Kansas Senate. What they don't have are the votes they need on the House side. So to complete the requirements in the Kansas Constitution for calling a special session, GOP leaders in the House need to obtain 84 signatures on its petition. In the House, GOP possesses an 88-37 edge over Democrats. And in talking to a couple of people yesterday on the Kansas legislature, they admitted they're surprised by some of the conservative holdouts who are not helping them move the ball forward on this and get redistricting done. But they've got to figure out the way in the next few days to get the votes that they need to then go back to Topeka and redraw the congressional maps. And obviously the goal would then be to squeeze out Sharice Davids and make a much more favorable map in the 3rd Congressional District. She has been obviously owning this district, which is largely Johnson County, since she won back in 2018 over Kevin Yoder. And since then, she keeps building on her margin of victory. So that's where the Republicans are basically trying to do in Kansas what they did in Missouri. And yes, it's gerrymandering. I will be the first one to sit here and admit it is gerrymandering. But when you look at the makeup of places like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, New Mexico, California, Illinois, New York, gerrymandering's been going on for 200 years. This is not something that, despite what the Kansas City Star wrote yesterday, they wrote a piece like, Trump started the gerrymandering. It's been going on for 200 years, guys. Stop. I mean, it was an opinion piece in the Star by Joel Mathis that headlined, Kansas GOP GOP blames redistricting on California. No, Trump started the fight. That's his headline. I will readily admit that this is gerrymandering, whether it's Emmanuel Cleaver on the Missouri side or Sharice Davids on the Kansas side. But all Trump did is acknowledge the game that his political opponents have been playing for a very long time and come to the conclusion of, you know what? We should do that.
They hate it when that happens.
Exactly. That's all this is. Trump just called the game out for what it is. And that's one of those things that whether you love Trump or can't stand him, to his credit, he's able to basically come to the conclusion of, you know what, if it's good for you guys, it's good for our side. And then there are still some Republicans who are like, well, you know, I think we should try to play a little nicer. Well, hold on. Pump the brakes. I agree in a perfect world. Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I wish politics was nicer. I wish it was a nicer sport and a nicer game sometimes. I really do. But you know what? That ship sailed a long time ago. And I agree it's not good for the country. I will readily admit that. It is not good for the country. But please don't sit here and tell me that Trump started all this. And that if only Trump wasn't here, oh, the political climate would be so much better. No, you guys would be getting your way. You'd still be steamrolling the nice guy GOP, the Mitt Romney, the John McCain GOP. Trump's the guy who basically said, you want a bull in the china shop? Well, guess what? Here I am. And there's something to be said for that. Okay? But he's basically playing by the same rules you've been playing by for a long time, and now you don't like it. And please spare me the whole, well, this is mid-cycle redistricting. Basically, the redistricting typically happens after each census every 10 years. And this is now going on, obviously, in the middle of the decade. Well, remember this as well. The last census, and the census has more or less admitted that they screwed up. And don't forget, too, they count bodies. They don't count citizens when they put together these congressional maps. Another flaw in the system that probably should be corrected at some point. So there is a lot that you look at with this process, and you got to say to yourself, it is a flawed process. It has been a screwed up process for 200 years at this point. And you don't have to take just my word for it. Arnold Schwarzenegger said as much on CNN the other day with Jake Tapper.
As you acknowledged, this all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that well, do you believe that the Republican Party is starting this?
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years. There is such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, it has like 40% of the people voting for Trump, they have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House. Think about that. In New Mexico, if 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House, 0 representatives from the Republican Party. So there's gerrymandering, crazy gerrymandering going on all over the country.
Arnold!
Yeah.
I'll be back.
He's doing a good job.
He put out an exercise record back in the 80s, and he had this thing, and we used the clip. Yeah, squeeze your buttocks. I got to find that.
Don't say that to Jake Tapper. He might get excited there, man, okay? So don't get Jake going, all right? Jeez.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm just saying. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's no fan of Trump, calling it like it is. 913-408-7957. Libby, you're on KCMO. What's going on?
Hi there, Pete. I recognize that governor's voice. But anyway, do you suppose that the reason they're hesitating in Kansas might be hesitation because of what happened with this Cleaver person when he was ousted? They don't want the NAACP to come down on them?
No, I think what it is, it's a good point, Libby. I think what it is there are Republicans in Johnson County who are solid conservatives, but who fear for their own, not their own seat, but their own supermajorities. Because actually, Republicans in Johnson County, in the state Senate and state House, have done a pretty good job in a county where Trump is not popular, separating themselves from Trump, but still being conservative Republicans in the state House and the state Senate. If they go ahead with this, Democrats are going to have a ton of enthusiasm going into 2026. That could lead to big wins in some of these state House and state Senate races. That could take away the supermajorities in the state House and the state Senate, and could also potentially help the Democrats in the governor's race in 2026 in Kansas, where there's this groundswell of enthusiasm. Hey, you took out Sharice Davids. That's our girl. And they have incredible momentum going into next year. I think that's the hesitancy that exists on the Kansas side from some Republicans in the House in particular. And that's why they don't want to go down this road right now. Less of an issue in Missouri. Missouri's obviously a Trumpier state than Kansas is. It's just a reality. And also, you've got some of these elections next year that will play a big role in what the future of Kansas looks like. Missouri is basically in the clear on any of these statewide races until 2028. So I think it's more about what it means for next year's elections in Kansas than anything else. Kate's back in the saddle, 10 a.m. this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. So I am keeping a close eye during this government shutdown on some of our local officials, and Sharice Davids on the Kansas side is done more on social media than she's done in a very long time, just with consistent videos and posts about, I'm trying to bridge the political divide and open up the government. Okay, so tell Chuck Schumer to vote for the darn continuing resolution, open up the government. Just do it. You can't play this middle-of-the-road game if you're Sharice Davids, when the reality is your party in the Senate, not in the House, but in the Senate, is basically holding the whole thing up. You just can't do it. But her team is doing a good job on social media, basically trying to protect her image. And yesterday, she puts out a 58-second video. And I'm going to play the video here. And it's about a letter that she got from this student in Olathe, which, you know, whether or not this is true or not, I don't know. But whatever, it sounds good. And in 58 seconds, I counted 8 jump cuts. Now, that is where when you watch like a video, there's an obvious cut because the person either had a flub or they wanted to tighten up the video or whatever it was. 8 jump cuts in 58 seconds. That's not good. Just to be clear, we do 4 hours every day on this show, and there's no opportunity for a jump cut. Everything that you hear is live, except for the caller of the day. So it's not like I'm recording any of this. Everything is live. Sometimes we screw up. Sometimes we have a bad moment. But you hear 4 hours of just my voice. You hear John. You hear Mark. And everything is live. No jump cuts. You have politicians who do 58 seconds of content, and they have 8 jump cuts in the video. And you can kind of hear it. You can see it. I shared it on X at Pete Mundo this morning. It was like the first thing I saw at 5 a.m. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And here's what it sounded like.
Hi, everybody. Rep Davids here. Every day I hear from folks about this government shutdown. Brennan has written in. He is a 6th grade student in Olathe. Brennan said, I think the main...
You can kind of hear it. Like it's like...
Brennan said...
Yeah, it's very skippy.
You get the different speeds or emphasis.
Yeah, that's where you can kind of notice the jump cut happening, where it just sounds like it's not natural. And you can see it. It's very obvious when you watch it, but you can even hear it there. So anyway, here's Sharice Davids sharing this letter she got from a 6th grader in Olathe.
Issue in our country currently is the government shutdown. Abraham Lincoln once said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We are divided. If we cannot join together, we may have a very big consequences. I think that if Democrats and Republicans can agree, then we can end this. Leave it to the young ones to remind adults what they should be doing. Brennan, first of all, thank you so much for writing in. I appreciate you reminding all of us how important it is for us to come together so we can get this government open back up. I'm here willing and ready to work with Republicans, Democrats. Right now, my basic ask is for us to even show up at the table. I'm here ready, willing, and able to do that. Let's get it done.
I'm ready, willing, and able to do that, says Sharice Davids after the letter that she got from the 6th grader in Olathe. So do it. So go to Chuck Schumer's office today and tell him that on behalf of the 3rd District voter in Kansas, you want the Senate to vote on the continuing resolution, which all it does is keep the government funding at the same level it's been at for the last several months. And you want him to do that today. There have been 13 votes on this. Republicans can't pass it themselves. They need 60 votes in the Senate. They've only got, 52, 53. They need a handful of Democrats to join them, and they can't get them to do it, John. So go to Chuck Schumer's office, Sharice, and tell him to open up the government.
Better yet, let's cut out the middleman, Rep. Davis, and just send him Brennan's letter. How about that?
That's great. Did you call her Rep. Davis on purpose?
Yeah.
I like that. Good job, Rep. Davis. Oh, my gosh. I'm just sitting here and I'm saying to myself, this is all a dog and pony show for people that aren't paying attention on social media. To see the Sharice Davids video and be like, yeah, you tell him, 6th grader. Sharice, you're doing a great job. It's like, there's nothing really for her to do. But this notion of, I'm just trying to bridge the divide. I'm just trying to bring people together. No, I mean, unless you're calling out your own side right now, you're not interested in that. Because that's what it's going to take to open up the government.
Maybe her and the governor got a 2-for-1 on the advisement deal there, right?
They may be using the same political advisor.
Yeah. Play the middle.
Oh, my goodness. Well, even I didn't like it last night when there was this virtual measurement between the Chiefs and the Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the chains would have been faster, guys.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
It was a joke. So last night, must have been the first quarter, Commanders facing a 4th and 6 from the Chiefs' 40-yard line when Marcus Mariota threw a pass to tight end Zach Ertz. The Chiefs tackle Ertz right at the first down line, so the officials went to a virtual measurement. It's this Hawkeye technology that was put in place this season in response to the Bills' AFC Championship loss to the Chiefs last year. So at the time, football fans are saying that the officials helped the Chiefs on the 4th down play. So now they've got this virtual ability to do a measurement on a first down. And it turned out last night that the Commanders were officially 5 inches short of this first down. And I'm not one to dive into a conspiracy theory around the NFL, although this NBA gambling scandal has got me thinking twice about that. I'm like, this took way too long. They went to a commercial break. They came back, and they still didn't have the answer.
That was my whole point. It's going to be stupid crap that takes too long. Just run the guys out with a chain. It's worked since 1900.
Yeah. I'm with you, John. You keep rubbing off on me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but you keep rubbing off on me with this stuff. I'm like, you guys took a break, and you come back, and you still don't have a measurement on the virtual first down.
I'm all for pushing boundaries, but there's a point of no return. We're diminishing returns, and this is it.
Yes.
Sure, the technology's great, and what do we got to do now? Appeal to NOAA?
Exactly.
Weather radar and everything. Shoot the Russian defense. Air defense probably could have spotted the ball tighter than the NFL.
Man, I'm so with you, man, because I'm watching this, and honestly, at least with the chains, you get to see it for yourself. At a time in history when people are questioning the professional sports around them and what's real and what's not, to have the virtual measurement, I don't think is a good look for the NFL. At least with the change, you get the two guys out there, and it's like, all right, 4 inches short. Let's go. 4th down, baby.
Yeah, and now the ushers have the extra responsibility. Every time a player puts a ball into the stands, they got to run down there and get the chipped ball back. And so now the kid doesn't have the ball that Rice handed to him. But a reasonable facsimile. Right?
Oh, I'm with you. Mark, are you a fan of this, or are you going to sit this one out, man?
I don't mind it, but yeah, it is kind of annoying when it should be faster, I think.
The whole point of it is to theoretically speed up the game.
Yeah.
Go to the computer. All right, 5 inches short.
Well, the ball should be tracked every second.
Well, that's true as well. I agree with you. I couldn't believe it last night. I'm like, okay, the whole point of this is to theoretically speed up the game. Instead, what we've done is we've taken a commercial break. We come back. Buck and Aikman still don't know what's going on last night at Arrowhead Stadium, and we're still trying to figure out where the ball needs to be placed. And then you get conspiracy theories on social media. Of course, the Chiefs got the benefit of the doubt from the virtual first down marker.
I saw the refs and the Chiefs hacked the virtual marker.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I didn't see that. That's getting deep. That's getting deep. That would make Tucker Carlson proud on a good conspiracy theory. My goodness. You see he had that wacko Nazi guy, Nick Fuentes, on his show? Holy smokes. But on the Chiefs front, man, they are looking as good as they have looked since the Tyreek Hill days. Maybe better because that defense is just as stout and the offense is as good as it's been since Tyreek left. Man, it's fun to watch. Woo! Bills on Sunday. Can't wait. All right. This has just been unbelievable to me over the last few days. Not even, really 36 hours. Huge news comes out of the college football world. LSU fires Brian Kelly. He's in his fourth year. He's getting $50 million to walk, and he is getting destroyed by a lot of people who either played for him or worked for him. And I have never seen anything like this, where people are just dancing on the grave of a college football coach who is now out of a job. And we are in the midst of a crazy college football coaching carousel, but this is next level. So this was posted yesterday, and I forgot about this story till I saw it resurface yesterday. Writing here about Brian Kelly. As people look back on his career, it's worth remembering one of the darkest moments under his watch at Notre Dame, where he was before he went to LSU. 15 years ago today, meaning yesterday, 20-year-old student videographer Declan Sullivan was killed after the scissor lift he was filming practice on fell in 50-mile-an-hour winds. Brian Kelly chose to hold practice outdoors that day despite dangerous weather warnings, and the lift was not supposed to be used in winds above 28 miles an hour. This poster writes here, Olivia Cleary, she is a sports reporter, writes here, so many people go into building successful programs, whether it's football, volleyball, or any other sport. And it's important that schools everywhere continue to prioritize their safety and well-being. They truly make a huge difference. Now, I forgot about that story where when Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame, they send this kid up, this videographer, up on the scissor lift to film practice during 50-mile-an-hour winds when it was not supposed to be used. And the scissor lift falls over and the kid gets killed. And I feel like that story, I was working in sports media at the time, and I just feel like that story just kind of went away, Mark.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, and I was surprised that he survived that. Brian Kelly.
I was like, no, the kid didn't survive.
No, yeah, Brian Kelly.
I know, which goes to show you all anyone cares about in this sport is winning. That's it. There was also this post that stood out to me last night, and this comes from Kyron Lacey's father. You may recall Kyron Lacey, young man who he took his own life, right? That's his backstory. He took his own life, and he was involved in a high-speed crash that happened after his time at LSU. And Kyron Lacey's father, Kenny, commented on the Brian Kelly firing and commented on this guy, Frank Wilson, taking over as interim coach. And he writes here, this dude, meaning Frank Wilson, the interim head coach, came down to sit with our family and showed us some real genuine love when my son died, along with a couple other coaches. Meantime, I didn't even get a call or text from Brian Kelly. It must be nice to get paid millions of dollars and then get your walking papers. Let's get it, Coach Frank, referring to the interim coach, Frank Wilson. And these stories are going viral all over social media. Basically, what an utter D-bag Brian Kelly is. I was going to say was, but he still is theoretically a D-bag. I mean, he just doesn't have a job anymore. It's really the difference here. And I can't think of any time I have seen a coach at any level get trashed on this scale, not about his coaching ability, but about who he is as a person on the way out the door. This is, and you know, I say this as a sports fan who has followed these guys for a long time. This guy was as disliked as any coach I've seen at any level of sports. And a part of it to me is because he comes off like the ultimate politician. It never felt like there was one authentic bone in Brian Kelly's body. You may recall a viral clip of Brian Kelly a few years back when he got the LSU job, trying to display a Southern Cajun accent for a kid who grew up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, he did the old "ain't no ways tired," but it was Brian Kelly's version.
He broke out as Hillary Clinton. I ain't no ways tired. Yep, he did that whole shtick. Except he did it in front of LSU fans as a kid who grew up in Massachusetts and was the coach at Notre Dame. He's as Irish Catholic as they come. Dude, just own who you are. It's one of the reasons that President Trump, no matter what you think of him, is relatable for a guy who's a New York City billionaire to people in places like here in Kansas and Missouri. People relate to him because he is who he is. He doesn't change who he is based on the audience. He doesn't try to be something he's not. He's just the same old dude. And in a world where people just can't embrace who they are, don't want to embrace who they are, think they have to be someone they're not, they go on different radio shows around Kansas City and put on different accents depending on who they're talking to. No one likes that. It's transparent. People can see right through it. Own who you are, embrace it, love who you are, and then let the chips fall where they may. And Brian Kelly is a quintessential example of somebody who can never do it.